Growing a Healthy School Community. And I prepared this presentation on Pear Deck so that you can participate and also have a copy of what you do in this session. So please check the chat for the link to the Pear Deck and feel free to join in as we get started. So, a little bit about me. I am a professional and digital learning coordinator with Dallas ISD, and that just means that I work with a team of other coordinators and specialists to help teachers integrate technology into their classroom. And so we were really prepared because we spent the last couple of years getting our district ready for one-to-one technology use with Chromebooks and with iPads for the lower grades. And so we're really prepared to go into 2020 when everything went virtual. So that's a little bit about what I do professionally with Dallas ISD. I feel like I was born for this. I enjoy presenting and going to conferences and talking about educational technology, which I love. You'll see me if you have been to TCA. I'm an avid TCA goer and ISTE. My first time ISTE conference this year, which unfortunately had to be virtual, but I know that I'll be attending in future years. But above everything, I've always been, and I always will be, a teacher first. I spent most of my years in the classroom in early childhood teaching first through third grades. And that's what the area and the kids that I enjoy most. And so a lot of my experience will come from in the ed tech that I share will come from that perspective. But since I work with K 12, I'll have some tools for you to use for working with older populations as well. And besides professionally, I am a mom and a wife, and these are my five heartbeats. And these are my this is what you call my why. I came into education because my oldest child had a learning disability. And always looking for ways to impact the classroom and make learning fun for a variety of types of learners. So the things I do with social emotional learning, also, I've been inspired by watching my own children and working with the kids in my classroom. So, today, I just want to give you an opportunity to think outside the box about social emotional learning and about educational technology. Those two things separately are usually viewed as extracurricular or extra things that we do in the classroom. But I want you to think outside the box today as we talk about how to impact your school community with technology tools, being intentional about planning for SEO learning. And at the end of the day, I'm hoping that you'll discover some tech tools that you haven't already used for social emotional learning. And these may be things that you have used prior to now, but just haven't thought about their use in social emotional learning development. And I will try to keep my eye on the chat. Sometimes I forget but you can feel free to post questions there and I'll keep my eye on it and I will be happy to answer them as we go along throughout. So, Stephen Covey, in his habits, the seven habits of highly effective people and highly effective kids, talks about beginning with the end in mind. So, when we think about developing a healthy school community, it is really important to begin with the end in mind. What is a healthy school community, and how might we get there? We want to think about what that looks like in our schools and what it sounds like, what our teachers doing, what our administrators doing, what our students doing to impact the environment in our school. And so I invite you to participate. This is an interactive slide. So I invite you, if you have joined the link Or if you're on Pear Deck, you can use the code that's here at the top right corner of the screen, NEDPJX. Please log in and go ahead and take a few minutes to think about what is a healthy school community. And in your response, you may say how that looks. What is everybody doing when you've got a healthy school community, and then we'll go from there. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. How does it look? You may even include how it sounds, and I'll share your answers here. We still have a few people coming in. If you're just joining us, please um, go to the link in the chat to join us on Pear Deck, or you can go to peardeck.com and put in the code here, NEDPJX or NEDPJX. And we're just talking about what a healthy school community is and taking a look at your responses. So we've had a few responses here, and I'll go ahead and share them. Healthy school community is one in which students are open to growth and mistakes, so they have a growth mindset, are learned from instead of ridiculed. Yes, they feel open to make mistakes because that's how we learn. There are positive messages said and encouragement witnessed, both between teacher and student and between students. And we also hope that's between teacher and staff as well. This is where students, administrators, and teachers are emotionally and physically healthy, yes, or working on that goal. Inclusive, empathy, respect for others, and an appreciation for diversity. Yes. So, with those things in mind, that is how we want to frame our growth or social emotional learning for our school and our students. Thank you for participating in that. So, the first step in growing a healthy school community is to visualize it. Get that picture in your mind of what a healthy school community is supposed to be, what it looks like. We had mentioned an appreciation for diversity, where kids feel safe learning and making mistakes. So, with that in mind, we are going to approach this SEL development with tech tools from the lens of the definition of how Castle defines social emotional learning. It is defined by Castle as the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply knowledge and skills and attitudes to develop healthy identities, to manage emotions, to achieve personal and collective goals, to feel and show empathy for others, and to establish and maintain supportive relationships in order to make responsible and caring decisions. This definition has been provided by Castle, and it incorporates the 5 competencies which they share on their website. If you'd like to dive deeper into Castle and gain some resources into social emotional learning, you can visit them at their website, castle.org. We'll use the 5 competencies today to get some insight on how to build a healthy school community. The more you're able to understand the competencies that are provided, then the better you're able to identify the type of tools you can use. The more comfortable you get at learning and working through the different competencies, which we'll see today, you'll be able to see how some tools that you're already using fit into the growth and development of students with social emotional learning. So let's dive in. The first competency that we'll talk about is self awareness. And this just has to deal with identifying your emotions. Although the competencies, I have to say, are not linear, we'll start with this one because this one has to do with understanding your own self, your identity, being able to recognize your own strengths, and developing a sense of self confidence and self efficacy. This one is most often viewed as something that young kids need to develop. However, this skill is often always developing even in our middle schoolers and high school students. As you know, as students grow older with the hormones and their own self identity changing, they still need access to tools to help them develop in this way. When we think about growing a healthy school community, we think about we want to develop a community of scholars who have a healthy self perception and who have the ability to recognize their own strengths. And we want to allow them or teach them how to take the perspectives of others. So, how do we develop that with students, and how do we use technology in order to do that? One of the primary ways that I've used in my classroom to help students develop self awareness and recognize their own skills and strengths is through journaling. Journaling can be accomplished in the old fashioned way. We use paper and pencils and binders, composition books, folders, even. I've kept journals that way. But you can also do this seamlessly using digital tools. Research says that journaling is a really good way to deal with trauma. I've kept journals throughout my own life. I've watched my mom, who's a retired teacher, deal with challenges in her life. And just recently, during COVID-19, she lost her husband. And I just watched the process that she used of using journals and going back and reflecting on some of the good times that she had written down throughout the years. And she'd kept a journal since the 70s. So being locked on lockdown and being alone during this time, she had journals to reflect, and it was a really healthy way of keeping her in a good state of mind. So, with technology, journal writing can be accomplished through blogging. And I've listed some tools that you can use. EduBlogs, and you may or may not have heard of that. Does anybody here used EduBlogs before? I've used that with my classroom. There's also Seesaw. Seesaw is an excellent way to have students reflect on their learning over time, as well as Book Creator. Now, as students begin to blog, they also have access to other ways of journaling or writing down their thoughts and feelings, which are through video logs. And one of the tools that I've used is Adobe Spark. Many times when people think of Adobe products, they think of a really large learning curve, but Adobe has come up with the Spark where you can do a post or you can even record a video seamlessly just by logging in. All right. There's also Flipgrid, which has become really popular with educators, where you can record or respond to video prompts. And Book Creator is also another one that I like to use for video logs. There's some other independent applications that I'd like to recommend that aren't as popular with students, but ones that I have found really helpful. And they are journaling or diary applications that students can access on their individual device, whether on their um, iPhone or their iPad. And these are also available both in Google and in Apple, and they are the 1 second every day. 1 second every day is a video diary, and it allows you to really just record 1 second. You don't have a lot of time. So, for people who are really wordy like me, this video diary doesn't work a lot because it was hard for me to use with just that short amount of time. But with students, it may be something that can catch on. There's also Day One, which I have found to be really helpful in just recording snippets. And with Day One Video Diary, you can record a video or you can use images from your device to and then you can write a prompt about them. And when students actually participate in this in with this particular app, it will prompt them each day to say, hey, you've taken some pictures, so maybe they've done a snapshot of some of their work that they've turned in. It'll prompt them and say, hey, you've taken pictures, would you like to write about it? And you can do that. There's also Journify, which is also a video journal that I don't have a whole lot of experience with, but works in very much the same way. So you can grow your healthy school community by developing self awareness, and you can do that through journaling, and that is written or through video logs.
Dr. Waters, you had a quick question in the chat.
Yes. Okay. Are there any that work well with Chromebooks after? Okay. Little kids realizing. I know that the video diaries, I don't have experience working with those on Chromebooks. And I know Chromebooks have, but all of the other applications that I've mentioned work well with Chromebooks, but not so much the video diaries. I can't speak to the experience with Chromebooks and the video diaries. Maybe there's someone in the group who has used a video diary with Chromebooks, and if so, please answer that in the chat. Yeah, Chromebooks are a whole different animal to deal with. Okay, thanks for asking. The vision boards. So, creating vision boards are an excellent way of building self awareness because it allows you to do goal setting. It allows you to look at your progress over time. And you can do those seamlessly with programs like Wakelet. And I know that there's a session on Wakelet going on today and throughout the conference that you may want to take a look at. You can also use Pinterest, which is not used as much with younger kids. Bunchy and Padlet and Leno are also ways that you can create a board, much like a cork board, to post pictures or even embed videos about your vision or your students' visions. So, of all the things that we've talked about to help develop self awareness, which ones have you used? And there are some tools you can grab, or dots or hearts or check mark. There's a heart and a yellow dot and a thumbs up. You can use those to respond which ones you will use or have used or loved in the past. And if you're just joining us, please join in the Pear Deck so that you can respond as well. And Wakelet has so much more than you could do. And I've kind of, I really abandoned Padlet so much here of late because Wakelet I have found has so many tools that you can use and you can share with others, and you can create and share as you can put links in. I'd encourage you to attend that session if you're not familiar with Wakelet. All right. So we've got some things that people are using. I see that people are loving the Edgy blogs, Spark, yes, Flipgrid, the Padlet, and Wakelet. So a little bit all around, and hopefully you have discovered some others, or uh, will take some time to learn about some of the other tools as well. I'll give you a moment. I see someone's looking to vote there. All right, so let's go on to our next competency, which is self-management. And actually, the lack of self-management, this is one of the competencies that is the one that shows up more readily, and it's the easiest to identify when kids lack self-management skills. It's the one that we identify with the most, I think. It shows up in poor self discipline, poor organizational skills, a lack of motivation, it seems. There's poor impulse control, and those are just to name a few. Self management has to deal with all of these things that are listed here, including goal setting and perseverance. When we think of improving self management skills for the benefit of growing a healthy school community, we think of helping students to deal with stress. We think about giving them resources for goal setting and staying organized. So we have learning management systems that we help students understand and use, as well as developing impulse control and self discipline. Many of these skills are developed through play. We seamlessly played our way to through developing impulse control and self-discipline when we played games like freeze tag and duck duck goose and other playground games. So how can we make sure that we're being intentional about allowing or giving our students opportunities to develop these skills through play for the benefit of our school community? Here we have to think outside the box because, especially with COVID around, students weren't allowed to play as closely with each other, or some students were completely virtual, so they didn't have a group to play with. So, how can we help students gain this skill using technology and in a virtual environment? One of the things that I have discovered is that learning through play doesn't stop because you're in a virtual environment, but you can use some of the same tools that you are using in the classroom to impact their social emotional learning and specifically impulse control and self discipline. One of the tools I often used with my first grade class was Go Noodle. And at the time, it was only known as the Indoor Resource app. That's what most of my colleagues knew it for and used it for. It was just for indoor recess, or if we have a test, if we're testing the kids, then we want to use one of the mindfulness tools, but it is so much more than that. Remember, when we're thinking of ways to build a healthy school community, healthy kids are working towards or have mastered impulse control. And so we want to make sure they have the tools for managing stress and give them a method or system that they can use. And you can do that with Go Noodle. Here are a few examples of some of the activities that are present in Go Noodle that I have used and that I think are helpful and that you can use if you're teaching students online and even if they're in the virtual classroom. So I'm going to go to Freeze It, which is just like freeze tag, but only in the classroom or virtual environment using Go Noodle. We can use Go Noodle to do freeze it, and freeze it will allow kids to get out their energy, dance around, and also you can tie it into some content skills if you like. So just just an example, and let me make sure I'm sharing my sound. Okay. So let me know if you can't hear that. Okay, so you can do a quick play or use custom questions. We'll do a quick play and we'll just do first grade here. We can do it based on time or emotions, even some reading skills we can tie in. So let's just do telling time. So you give your students an opportunity to dance around. Okay, so then they dance around. Oh, I'm sorry, you couldn't hear that. I just need to optimize the sound, and I don't think I could do that on my end. I don't see that setting. I've optimized the video clip, but I can't share the sound for some reason. However, you kind of get the gist of it, that they get to dance around and they freeze, and then you've got content tied in there. So you're getting that impulse control worked right into the content of your day. You can do this. Kids love it when they do this on Zoom and in the classroom environment. So you could do it with both. And if you're a teacher who's teaching both the virtual students and your face-to-face students, then this is a way of capturing everybody and letting them get that skill. So that is Freeze It. Then there's the Fit the Sitch, which teaches students how to fit their actions with the situation that's going on. And I love this. I'm just only for time's sake, I'm only going to show you a little bit of this, but I just love these guys. This is probably one of my favorite channels on Go Noodle, the Blazer Fresh Crew, because they have a great way of impacting the learning. And here in this particular activity, they take students through a variety of situations. So, what do you do when you're on the playground? You're loud. What do you do when you're in the library? And then you can use this language with your students to teach them how to act in certain situations. Let's see if,
It's not a video setting. It's
yeah.
like when you share on Zoom, it asks you if you want to share your system sound or not.
Yeah, so I'm not able to share the sound from my controls. I'm waiting for the moderator to see if is it
It's
possible that you have that? Because usually I have it here under my more button, but I don't see it here.
it's usually when you go to first share the screen and then you say share desktop audio.
Okay, let me see. Let's see. Oh, it says you are sharing the sound from your computer, so this is already. Okay, let's try this again. Do you have it now?
No.
Nope.
No? Hmm. Let's see.
On a side note, my second grader loves these.
Hmm. Okay, let me just double check something else. And maybe my volume isn't up. Let's see.
It's coming
There
through.
we go. Yeah.
Why?
Now we can hear it.
Be quiet. You see someone carrying a lot of stuff. Fit the sitch. Be helpful. Hey, can we? Oh, thanks, guys. Thank you.
So you get the idea that this video really helps to form the language of your social awareness, fitting the situation, and helps kids to develop that language and also the habits that they need for developing those things. So this is all in self management. And then the final one that's here on Go Noodle, and there's so many more, but these are just like my top three. My top three go tos, and this is the on and off flow, which helps with just managing impulse control, managing yourself, and just kind of a calming type of video.
This exercise will teach you how to turn high, stressful energy off so that you can do what you need to do to be your best self. Close your eyes and listen, or keep them open and follow along. Remember, you are in control of your body. Sit back and rest.
So this one takes you through a series of kind of relaxation tools, and it gives students the tools that they can use once they practice this and they do it with you in the classroom. Then these are tools that when they get into a stressful situation, that they have learned how to use. They know what actions to take when they feel stressed. And you can find more if you go to Go Noodle. There are, let's go there and let's just click that off. There's so many channels that you can go to, including the ones that you see on YouTube. They have the dance channels. I often like the ones that are good for relaxing before and after testing. They've got some breathing, and they have different categories for curricular. They have a whole SEL and mindfulness category that you can find things to do there, along with whoops, along with sensory motor skills and so many other things. And if you're in an area that like here in Dallas, Texas, we are in an area where the Children's Hospital sponsors Go Noodle, so we all get Google Plus for free. And with Google Plus, you have all the curricular resources. So great tool for building SEL skills. Okay, thank you. I see the message about the share system sound. Okay, so let's continue. Our next tool is going to be building social awareness. And that has more to do with perspective taking, empathy. We talked about an appreciation for diversity and respect for others. We want to make sure that in our quest for developing a healthy school community, that we have students that have the ability to take the perspective of others, and that we're able to help them to build empathy and appreciate diversity, have a healthy respect for diversity in the school. To develop the social awareness in kids, we can help them learn how to see social situations from multiple points of view and to identify with others. Teaching empathy with students really involves practice through life experience and guidance. And one of the first ways I think of building empathy is talking about and sharing about situations that are happening in the classroom, in our school community, and around the world. The best opportunity that I had to build empathy in my classroom using technology tools was during read alouds and sharing through tools such as Get Epic. If you haven't used Get Epic or don't know what it is, Epic or Get Epic is like a digital library. They have a set of books that are available for students. I used it primarily to engage student readers, as well as during the read aloud, it allowed me to share the book. And if you're teaching both your virtual students and your students in class, then you have the ability to broadcast the book as you share the theme of the stories that are happening. It's a great tool. You can find it at getepic.com. Anybody here that uses Get Epic in their classroom? Okay. It is an excellent way. I think it's really engaging. And not only can you share stories with students, you have the ability to have a classroom within Get Epic, and you can assign titles that your students may need to read, maybe something about bullying, and they have a library of social emotional learning books as well. So that is Get Epic. You can also tell your own story and practice identifying how others are feeling through Flipgrid. So that's an activity that you can use through Flipgrid. I'm looking at the time Want to make sure that we have time. So I encourage you, if you're using Flipgrid, you can go and you can search for these activities that have to do with developing empathy and social awareness. You can, it's really become a game changer in the classroom, and you can especially get students talking and sharing in video about how they're feeling and about recognizing the feelings of others through Flipgrid. There are also some topics about race and equality that are located in Flipgrid, and a whole collection of social emotional learning. So I encourage you to go to your grid and discover those activities. And we talked about gaming as or playing as a way to develop these social emotional learning skills. And so Kahoot is also among the tools that can be used to teach social emotional learning skills. They actually have a direct teach, an empathy course that or activity that allows you to direct teach having empathy. And let me see if I can, if I'm still, whoops, I'm not still linked to that. Let me see if I can go to it here in Kahoot. So I have a collection of um, social emotional learning here that I have that other teachers, and also there's a partnership with Kahoot and Empatico organization, and they have several different types of the things that you can do to build social emotional learning skills. This one is on perspective taking, and it just asks questions about what it means and really gives a way of educating what perspective taking is for students. Okay. All right. So I'm just checking the chat here. So you have Get Epic from school, but the parent side, okay, the restrictions. Yeah. It locks you out after. Yeah, that is unfortunate that Get Epic does lock the kids out unless their parents have a subscription. I know at one time during the start of the pandemic, then they kind of gave it away for free. I think they have retracted that by now. All right, so let's get back. So there are direct teach. You can direct teach perspective taking and empathy using Kahoot. Let's talk about our next skill that we want students to develop, and that is relationship skills. And this is a big one because school is relational. Your life, you're going to have to be able to communicate and relate to people. This involves building relationships, involves communicating with others, engaging socially with others, and a healthy school community depends on good communication and problem solving skills. Much of that can be developed through play, and nearly all of these skills can be developed through play. And we know with working with children that there are so many skills that can be developed through play. And one of the ways to build relationship skills is through playing with esports. Is anyone here active in esports or has a school or community that is active in esports? And is there anyone here who has had an opportunity to participate or view esports in action? Okay. Well, let me tell you that esports is basically. Whoops, I didn't mean to move to the next competency. It's basically a competitive video gaming. That's how I like to think of it. It allows for the development of communication skills as well as building teams, working on teamwork and problem solving. Students can work on these soft skills while doing things that they're already familiar with. So I've seen matches with Super Smash Bros. I've seen it with NBA 2K. There also have some teams with League of Legends, and of course, let me not forget to mention Fortnite, which is a really popular one as well. Schools typically establish these teams. You may have a teacher sponsor that says we're going to do esports, and they just get everything started. I see someone has seen some of the StarCraft tournaments. Okay. All right. While esports is very popular in high schools, there are opportunities for middle schoolers and even elementary school kids to be involved in the games. So I'd like to give you a resource for that. Check out the North American Scholastic Esports Federation. It is nacef.org. If you want to know more about esports and getting involved with that, you can check out that's North American. I'll just put the link in the chat. It's nacef.org to get more information about getting started with esports if you haven't already. If you are on a Microsoft campus or in a Microsoft school district, you have access. You may not know this, but as a Microsoft school or district, you actually have access to Minecraft, and you can run games or activities through Minecraft that allow students to build and work on their team building and problem solving skills. And that is at education.minecraft.com. Oops. Okay. All right. So that takes us through to esports. Now, finally, we have responsible decision making. And we like to think as students are developing all of these skills that they have a healthy way of identifying problems, analyzing situations, solving problems, and evaluating and reflecting on the decisions that they're making. This is the final competency that we'll discuss. We've discussed 5 of them. And when students have a good grasp of responsible decision making, it lends for a very healthy school community. They can do this with playing esports, as well as in this app that I used with my first grade students, which is Class Dojo. Class Dojo is known for its classroom management type of application, but as they have evolved, they've gotten more into trying to be more than that, more of a learning management system. So they have activities that you can do. But the big thing I use in Class Dojo to impact social emotional learning is this big ideas. And with the big idea, you have an opportunity to discover um, and talk. Let's see if I can go directly to it. With the big ideas, you have the opportunity to expose kids to videos that are right on their level, and you can have conversations about things like growth mindset, perseverance, empathy, respect, positive thinking, all those things that we want to develop in social emotional learning. They also have this new thing that they have, which is called conundrums. And this just exposes to kids to what if you're trying to make a decision and or you're trying to find a solution, but there's really no good way to solve it. And so there are some ideas behind how to deal with conundrums or challenging problems that you don't necessarily have a solution for. So I encourage you to explore both the big ideas and the conundrums if you haven't already with Class Dojo. And then let me not forget to mention Nearpod. Nearpod, if your district or school has access to Nearpod, you can direct teach many of the social emotional learning ideas that we've discussed here. They actually have SEL lessons built into their platform. If your district has a subscription to the premium version of Nearpod, you'll be able to access the SEL Moments curriculum. And they talk about responsible decision making here and actually have lessons built out for you in the platform. And then finally, one thing I want to mention is Class Craft, which is kind of gamified platform that allows your students to set up avatars and they can work as a team towards goals that you set. All right. All right, so let's think about now which tech tools bring you joy when you think of SEL skill development. I would like to know what tech tools you use or are using or want to use, and you can put that in the chat if you like, or you can share that in the Pear Deck. But before you go, I know that we just have a few minutes left. Before you go, I want to make sure that we talk about building a healthy school community is not just about the students. We want to make sure that you are well taken care of too as a teacher. So we've talked about starting with a vision today, learning and being familiar with the 5 competencies in SEL, and then being intentional about using the tools, but you also have to take care of you. So I want to tell you about 3 tools that are 3 applications that you can use to make sure you have a healthy well-being in your school community. One of the apps that I like to use is called Shine, and it gives me a daily check-in. So I get a morning shine to say, hey, how are things going? How are you feeling? And then it also provides an evening shine for me. There's also Super Better, which is a resilience app that helps you build resilience. Now, this can not only be used for adults, but it's also good for students as well. But I found that this working towards being better is great for me. It gives you quests and power ups and helps you identify future boots or future things that you can work on. And you can do all of this in partnership with friends, family, colleagues, and you can invite guests to work with you on this app. And then there's also the Smiling Mind, which is a mindfulness app that allows you to practice daily meditation and mindfulness exercises in just 10 minutes a day. So, being intentional and attentive to your own self helps you to build a healthy school community using technology. So we have just about 3 minutes, I think. And are there any questions? I'm going to check the chat to see if I've missed anything. If there's any questions, please feel free to ask them now. I thank you so much for stopping by to learn about SEL and technology. If I miss you here, then feel free to connect with me on Twitter at at Dr. Anita Waters, and I'd be happy to share some more things with you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? 2 minutes. Lots of good tools.
Thank you so much for joining.
No. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.